Gym owner shames elderly man recording workout. Hollywood producer offers him a movie role. The slap of the towel against the chrome dumbbell rack was the first sound of the attack. It was sharp, deliberate, a crack of thunder in the otherwise rhythmic symphony of the gym. Arthur Pendleton, all of 78 years and sinew, didn't flinch. His eyes, magnified slightly by his simple, wire-rimmed glasses, remained fixed on the tiny screen of the smartphone propped against his water bottle. He was watching the playback of his last set of lateral raises, his brow furrowed in concentration. The form was a little shaky on the last 2 reps. His shoulder, the one the doctors had wanted to replace a decade ago, was dipping. "What do you think you're doing, old man?" The voice was a low growl, saturated with the kind of manufactured authority that came from a diet of protein shakes and self-aggrandizing podcasts. Arthur looked up. Trent, the owner of Iron and Alchemy, stood over him, a mountain of sculpted muscle and smugness. He was everything Arthur was not: young, loud, and gleaming with a sheen of coconut-scented tanning oil. Trent's tank top, cut so low on the sides it was more of a suggestion than a garment, revealed a tapestry of tribal tattoos that snaked over his deltoids and chest. Arthur slowly straightened, his back protesting with a series of quiet clicks. "Pardon, the phone," Trent said, gesturing with a thick veiny hand. "Recording, you know the rules. No recording on the floor. It's for the privacy of our members." The gym wasn't crowded, not at this mid-morning hour. A handful of younger men were grunting through their own routines, their headphones like protective shells, sealing them off. A woman on the far side of the room was flowing through a yoga sequence, her movements fluid and oblivious. No one was near Arthur. No one was in his shot except for a rack of brightly colored kettlebells and a motivational poster of a lion roaring, captioned with "Unleash the Beast." "Oh," Arthur said, his voice soft, raspy with age. "I'm sorry. I wasn't. I was just checking my form. I didn't get anyone else in the video." Trent let out a short, derisive laugh. "Checking your form? Grandpa, what form? You look like a scarecrow in a hurricane. I'm doing you a favor, saving you the embarrassment of watching that back." The words were a physical blow, sharper than the towel slap. Humiliation, hot and acidic, rose in Arthur's throat. He could feel the eyes of the other gym members now, their attention snagged by the confrontation. The rhythmic clanking of weights had faltered. The silence was heavy, judgmental. He was in a cathedral of the young and the strong, and he was an ancient relic, out of place. The gym, Iron and Alchemy, was a testament to modern fitness culture. The lighting was a cool, surgical blue, casting no flattering shadows. The air smelled of sterilized rubber, metal, and a faint, cloying hint of the berry-flavored pre-workout drink that was sold at the front desk. Every surface was polished, from the mirror sheen of the free weights to the glossy black floors. Music throbbed from invisible speakers, a relentless, bass-heavy beat that felt more like a command than an encouragement. It was a place designed for building bodies into weapons or ornaments. And Arthur, with his faded college sweatshirt and practical New Balance sneakers, was an anomaly. He came here for maintenance, not for vanity. He came here to fight. Trent leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, yet performative, whisper that carried across the floor. "Look, I run a high-end establishment. My clients pay for an experience. They pay for exclusivity. They don't pay to be in the background of some senior citizen's home movie. It kills the vibe." He pointed a thick finger at the phone. "Put it away now, or your membership is revoked." Arthur's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his phone. His fingers, gnarled with arthritis, but still surprisingly strong, fumbled with the screen, ending the recording. He felt 100 pairs of eyes on him, even though there were only a handful of people there. The power dynamic was stark, absolute. Trent was the king of this castle, the roaring lion on the poster. Arthur was just an old man, a trespasser. He didn't belong. The younger men went back to their lifts, a little too quickly, their movements a little too loud, as if to drown out the lingering shame that hung in the air. None of them met Arthur's gaze. Their silence was a form of consent, an endorsement of Trent's cruelty. Arthur picked up his worn leather gym bag and his water bottle, his movements stiff and deliberate. He didn't say another word. He simply walked away, the weight of the gym's collective gaze pressing down on his stooped shoulders. He felt their pity, their dismissal, their relief that the uncomfortable spectacle was over. He pushed through the glass door into the men's locker room, the forced chill of the main floor giving way to a damp chlorine-tinged warmth. The locker room was empty. He sat down heavily on a wooden bench, the varnish smooth and cool beneath him. He didn't undress. He just sat there, the gym bag slumped at his feet, his head in his hands. This was his breaking point. The carefully constructed wall of dignity he built around himself each day had been sledgehammered into dust. It wasn't just Trent's words. It was the crushing realization of his own irrelevance, his own fragility. He was a ghost haunting a world that no longer saw him. The gym had been his sanctuary, the one place where he could battle against the slow, insidious decay of age. It was where he could feel the burn in his muscles and know he was still alive, still fighting. Now, it was just another place where he was reminded of everything he had lost. His hands shook. Not from the exertion of the workout, but from a deep seismic tremor of despair. He saw his reflection in the mirror opposite him, a tired old man, with thinning white hair, a web of wrinkles mapping a lifetime of smiles and sorrows, and eyes that looked hollowed out. The vibrant, determined man he felt like on the inside was gone, replaced by this frail caricature. Trent's words echoed in his head, scarecrow in a hurricane. He squeezed his eyes shut. A single, hot tear escaped and traced a path through the weathered lines of his cheek. It was a tear of pure, undiluted grief. For his lost strength, for his lost relevance, for his wife. He took a deep, shuddering breath. Then another. He opened his eyes and looked at his reflection again. This time, he looked deeper, past the surface-level despair. He saw the flicker of defiance in his own gaze. It was a tiny spark in the vast darkness, but it was there. It was the same spark that had gotten him through a war, that had helped him build a business from nothing, that had given him the strength to hold his wife's hand as the doctor explained. What was happening to her mind? He would not be broken, not by a bully in a tank top, not by the casual cruelty of the world. He stood up, his spine a little straighter. He picked up his gym bag. As he did, his phone, which he had shoved into the side pocket, buzzed. Then it buzzed again, and again. A rapid, insistent series of notifications, like a frantic tapping on his shoulder. Frowning, he pulled it out. The screen was a cascade of alerts from an app he rarely used. X, formerly Twitter. A video. A hashtag. Hashtag Heartoverin. He squinted, tapping on one of the notifications. The video that filled his screen was sickeningly familiar. It was Trent, looming over him. The towel snap, the sneering voice. "What do you think you're doing, old man?" But this video wasn't from his phone. It was filmed from a different angle, from across the room, partially obscured by a weight machine. The audio was crystal clear. It had captured everything. Beneath the video, a torrent of comments was flowing in. A digital river of outrage. "This is disgusting. That poor man. At Iron and Alchemy. Is this how you treat your members? Canceling my membership now. Someone find this sweet grandpa and give him a hug." And a new gym. A young woman named Maya, a quiet graphic designer, who often worked out in the afternoons, had filmed the entire exchange. She had seen the cruelty and, unlike the others, had refused to be a silent bystander. She had uploaded it with a simple caption. "This happened at Iron and Alchemy Gym in LA today. The owner, Trent, attacking an elderly member for quietly recording himself. This isn't strength. This is weakness. Hashtag Heartoverin. Hashtag respect your elders." The wave had just begun to form, but it was already building into a tsunami. The video was being shared, reposted, commented on by people with blue checkmarks next to their names. A famous fitness influencer with millions of followers had stitched it, her face a mask of fury. "This is not what the fitness community is about," her caption screamed. A news anchor from a local station shared it, asking, "Does anyone know who this gentleman is? We'd like to speak with him." Arthur stared at the screen, his heart pounding a frantic, unsteady rhythm against his ribs. He felt a dizzying sense of vertigo, as if the solid floor of the locker room had turned to water. His private moment of humiliation was no longer private. It was everywhere. It was a spectacle, a story, a cause. He was no longer just Arthur Pendleton, retired accountant and devoted husband. He was now the sweet grandpa from the video, a symbol of persecuted dignity. The system, the small, tyrannical system of Trent's gym, was not just trembling. It was beginning to fracture. The next 48 hours were a blur. The viral wave crashed with a force that was both terrifying and vindicating. Iron and Alchemy became a digital pariah. Its Google reviews plummeted from a pristine 4.8 stars to a dismal 1.2. The comments section on its Instagram page, once a showcase of chiseled bodies and glowing testimonials, became a war zone of angry emojis, and promises of boycotts. The hashtag Heart of Iron was trending worldwide. Brand deals that Trent had so proudly plastered all over his social media began to evaporate. The organic energy drink company, the artisanal protein powder brand, the minimalist workout apparel line, they all issued public statements, severing ties, condemning his behavior, and pledging their support for inclusive fitness environments. His online empire, built on a foundation of aggressive motivation and aspirational narcissism, was crumbling into digital dust. The power flip was swift and brutal. Karma, it turned out, had a Twitter account. For Arthur, the experience was profoundly surreal. His face was on the news. His faded college sweatshirt was the subject of sympathetic memes. He was inundated with messages of support, offers of free gym memberships, and even a few awkward romantic overtures from women his own age, who admired his quiet strength. He felt a strange sense of detachment from it all, as if he were watching a movie about someone else. But the most significant change was internal. The shame that had settled so heavily in his chest had begun to dissipate, replaced by a quiet, burgeoning sense of validation. He wasn't invisible. He wasn't irrelevant. His quiet fight mattered. People saw him, and they were on his side. The local news station that had reached out finally got his number from a neighbor. They offered him an exclusive interview. "We want to give you a platform, Mr. Pendleton," the eager young reporter said over the phone, "to tell your story, to set the record straight." And that was when the story took a turn no one could have predicted. That was when the twist that would reframe everything came to light. Arthur politely declined the initial interview requests. He was a private man, and the thought of sitting under bright lights, his face broadcast to the entire city, was deeply unsettling. But the news station was persistent. They called again, this time with an offer. "Mr. Pendleton," a producer named Sharon said, her voice smooth and persuasive, "we understand your hesitation, but this story has touched so many people. It's bigger than just one gym. It's about dignity, respect. We believe your voice needs to be heard. And, to show our sincerity, and to compensate you for your time and the emotional distress you've endured, the network is prepared to offer you an honorarium of $25,000 for an exclusive, sit-down interview." $25,000. The number hung in the air, shimmering with possibility and temptation. Arthur's breath caught in his throat. It wasn't just money. It was a lifeline. He was a retired accountant. He had planned well. His pension was adequate. His small house was paid off. But he hadn't planned for this. He hadn't planned for the astronomical cost of Alzheimer's care. His wife Eleanor, the love of his life for 52 years, was in a facility called Meadowbrook Gardens. It was the best he could find, a place with kind nurses and a sunny courtyard. But it was expensive, frighteningly expensive. His savings were dwindling at an alarming rate, a silent, relentless drain that kept him awake at night. The cost of her care had just gone up again last month. He was starting to have to make choices, the kind of soul-crushing choices that pitted his financial survival against her comfort. He'd already canceled his own dental insurance. $20,000 would be a reprieve. It would be a buffer. It would mean he wouldn't have to consider moving her to a less expensive, less pleasant facility. It would mean another year of peace of mind. But to get it, he would have to do the one thing he didn't want to do. He would have to talk. He would have to share his private pain with the world. And he would have to explain why he was recording himself. That this was the moral dilemma. The choice that wasn't black and white. It wasn't about getting back at Trent. It wasn't about fame or vindication. It was about love and money, privacy and desperation. It was a wrong but tempting moment. To take the money would feel like selling a piece of their sacred, private world. It felt like exploiting Eleanor's illness, turning their tragedy into a commodity for public consumption. But to refuse it could mean jeopardizing her care. What would he do? What was the right choice when both options felt wrong? He thought of Eleanor. He thought of her laugh, the way her eyes used to sparkle when he told a bad joke. He thought of her now, in her quiet room at Meadowbrook, her gaze often distant, lost in the fog of a disease that stole memories like a thief in the night. The recordings weren't for him. They were for her. Every day, after his workout, he would go to Meadowbrook. He would sit with her, hold her hand, and play the short video he had made. "See, Ellie," he would say softly, his voice gentle. "It's me. I went to the gym today. I did the shoulder exercises you always told me to do. See, I'm staying strong for you." Sometimes, for a fleeting, precious moment, A flicker of recognition would cross her face. A ghost of a smile. A slight squeeze of his hand. It was a connection. A tiny thread back to the man she loved. The videos were his daily love letter. His proof of life. His desperate attempt to anchor her to the present. He was recording his fight against his own decay, to show her that he was still fighting for her. For them, it wasn't about vanity. It was about memory. It was about love in the face of oblivion. How could he explain that to a news camera? How could he turn something so profoundly intimate into a soundbite? He stood in his quiet living room, the phone pressed to his ear. The producer's offer hanging in the balance. He looked at the framed photo on the mantelpiece. A picture of him and Eleanor on their wedding day. Young and impossibly happy. The world of vast and sunlit promise before them. Okay, he whispered into the phone, his voice thick with emotion. I'll do it. The interview was scheduled for the following afternoon. They sent a car. The reporter, a woman with a kind face and empathetic eyes, set him at ease. They sat in his own living room, the cameras tucked away discreetly. The reporter, guided by the producer's earlier conversation with Arthur, navigated the topic with grace. She started with the incident at the gym. Arthur recounted it simply, without melodrama. He didn't rail against Trent. He just stated what happened. Then, she gently steered the conversation. Mr. Pendleton, people have been so moved by your story. But there's one question many have asked. Why were you recording yourself? Was it to track your progress? Arthur took a deep breath. This was the moment. The precipice. No, he said, his voice quiet but steady. It wasn't for me. It was for my wife. He told them everything. About Eleanor. About the Alzheimer's. About their 52 years together. About the way her memory was slipping away, piece by piece. He explained that the videos were his way of reaching her. Of reminding her who he was. The doctors said familiarity is important, he explained, his eyes glistening. Familiar routines, familiar faces. So, I show her that I'm still here, that I'm still your Arthur. I flex my arm for her, like a silly teenager, and sometimes she smiles. He paused, collecting himself. The gym's not just about my health. It's about being strong enough to take care of her, for as long as I can. The videos, they are my proof of love. As he spoke, the producer in the remote van gave a quiet instruction to the camera operator. Push in on the mantelpiece. Get a shot of that photo. Then, she said, ask him if he has one of the videos he can show us. The reporter asked. Hesitantly, Arthur agreed. He took out his phone, his hands trembling slightly, and found the last video he had taken, the one that Trent had interrupted. He had finished it later, in the privacy of his own home. He played it for them. And that's when the world saw it. The unforgettable, WTF moment that would become the emotional core of the entire story. The video was simple. It showed Arthur in his living room, wearing the same faded sweatshirt. He was doing a bicep curl, with a small, 5-pound dumbbell. He smiled at the camera, a genuine, loving smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. For you, my love, he said softly. But it was the background that made the image so powerful. Stuck to the mirror behind him was a single, yellow sticky note. On it, in his neat, slightly shaky handwriting, were 5 words. For you, my love. A dot. It was a small detail, but it was everything. It was a testament to his devotion. A private message now made public. It was the visual anchor for his entire story. A perfect, heart-wrenching thumbnail. The interview aired that night. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The story exploded again, but this time, it wasn't just about outrage. It was about love, devotion, and the quiet heroism of everyday life. The visual of Arthur flexing with the sticky note in the background became an icon. Hashtag For You My Love started trending even higher than hashtag Heart of Iron. Donations poured into an Alzheimer's research fund that the news station had linked in their online article. The $25,000 was wired to his account the next morning. Arthur sat at his kitchen table, staring at his online banking statement, a profound sense of relief washing over him. He had done it. He had traded his privacy for his wife's security. And strangely, it didn't feel as wrong as he had feared. It felt right. He had not just sold his story, he had shared it. He had given his love a voice, and the world had listened. 2 days later, another call came. This one wasn't from a news station. The voice on the other end was brisk, professional, and had the unmistakable cadence of Hollywood. Am I speaking with Mr. Arthur Pendleton? You are. Mr. Pendleton, my name is Marcus Thorne. I'm a producer for Stonegate Pictures. I work with Mr. Kincaid. Arthur's mind blanked. Kincaid, as in Damien Kincaid, the legendary action star. The actor whose grizzled face and gravelly one-liners had dominated the box office for 3 decades. I see, Arthur stammered. Mr. Kincaid saw your interview, Marcus continued, his tone matter of fact. We all did. We were incredibly moved by it. Your authenticity. It's a rare commodity these days. Arthur waited, unsure of what was coming next. A donation. An offer to appear in a public service announcement. We're currently in pre-production for a film called The Last Sentinel, Marcus said. Damien is playing a retired black soldier who was pulled back for one last mission. There's a small, but pivotal, role in the film. A character named Silas. He's an old friend of Damien's character, a retired master sergeant who runs a boxing gym. He's the moral compass of the film, the one who reminds the hero what he's fighting for. He has a monologue, a speech about what real strength is. It's not about muscle. It's about what you're willing to endure for the people you love. Marcus paused. Mr. Kincaid and our director, they don't want an actor for this role. They want the real thing. They saw your interview, Mr. Pendleton. They saw that video of you, with the note on the mirror, and they saw Silas. Arthur sank into his chair, the phone feeling weightless in his hand. You're offering me a movie role. We are, Marcus confirmed. It's not a huge part, but it's an important one. We'd pay you the SAG scale rate, of course. We'd send a car for you. All you'd have to do is be yourself, say the words, and show the world what real strength looks like. Tears welled in Arthur's eyes, but this time, they weren't tears of shame or sorrow. They were tears of disbelief, of gratitude, of a world that had suddenly, inexplicably, tilted on its axis and showered him with grace. He thought of Trent, his gym now a ghost town, his fame a ruin. He thought of the $25,000 sitting in his bank account, a shield protecting Eleanor. And now this, a movie, with Damien Kincaid. It was absurd. It was impossible. It was beautiful. He looked again at the photo on the mantelpiece. Eleanor was smiling at him, her eyes full of life. He could almost hear her voice, a gentle whisper, from a time before the fog. Go on, Arthur. Show them what you're made of. Cruelty always collects its debt. But sometimes, just sometimes, love gets its reward. Dignity is its own kind of superpower. He cleared his throat, his voice surprisingly firm. Mr. Thorne, Arthur said, a slow smile spreading across his face. When do I start? Where are you reading this from? Drop your city, your state, your country. Let's see how far this story travels. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next justice twist.